Good morning. It's Bob. We're talking about being with Christ in the school of love. And one of the things that the early church was focusing on over and over again was this analogy that the church, the people of God and God are sort of like a wheel with spokes, that the further that we are out toward the rim, the further we are from each other and the further we are from God. And that as we move closer to God, we move closer to the others. And as we do that, we experience both oneness with God and oneness with others. And that these two things are intended to happen as we move toward closer and closer intimacy with God. We move closer and closer to intimacy with others. And it's a beautiful analogy of how this is intended to work, that God is, and actually it's something that's a very big deal to the authors of the New Testament, and especially to Jesus, is that he wants us to be one. He wants us to be blended. He wants us to be reconciled both to him and to others. He wants us to experience oneness with him and in the same way, oneness with each other. And that those things are so intrinsically tied together that you can't really pull them apart. I think that a lot of times over the years, I had kind of fancied this idea in my head that if you were, if I could just go away and be by myself with God, that I could experience intimacy with God like the monks and the nuns have done over the years. And maybe some of you are like, I would never even think of that because that's a crazy person kind of thought. But the reality is that I have such a hunger for intimacy and closeness and oneness with God. But that the idea in this is typically what ends up happening as monastic communities are formed, and there's an intimacy among them as they grow more intimate with God. That's how we're designed. We're designed to, as we grow closer and more in oneness with God, that we grow more and more in oneness with community, and that we are blended, and that our lives overlap, and that our identities, it's not as distinct where one person, leaves off and the other one begins, because our lives are so shared, they're so joined, they're so koinoniaed, that we are sharing life in the Spirit and we're sharing life together. And this is a beautiful connectivity that God has designed for us. And this is something, honestly, that in our highly privatized, highly individualized America, we just simply don't have any vision for. And so I want to put some of these things on the table so that we begin to think about them and begin to work toward them in our marriages, in our families, in our church, in our greater community. Would you think about these things today and start praying with me for them? Thanks so much for joining me. I love you.